Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the lab. Welcome to the lab off hours. This morning, I wanted to jump back into the raids and bits code, and unfortunately, I missed hitting the start record button again. So I need to kind of catch everybody up on what's been going on. Close that tab out. But yeah, let's do a quick recap. So in the last video, the lab off hours, we were trying to implement handlers and receivers for bits events and raid events through IRC, and we ran through a massive code in the IRC read function to attempt to make that happen. Well, since then, I've kind of cleaned things up just a little bit. For starters, I've moved this parse IRC line logic into its own function. The biggest reason for doing that is testability. I can now take this function and write a unit test just for IRC line parsing. There's a whole host of things that I want to do there. Next, I've also gone and added a couple of parse message types, parse message functions, I should say. So for one, we have this parse message type, which assumes that a message ID is present. And this assumes on a user notice message, which is an important distinction. So I actually had a bit of a bug this morning while testing it. The bits check used to be down here in this case, but the reality is that bits don't come in on a user notice. Bits come in on a priv message. And so with priv messages, the only way to really check if it is a bits message, other than some very complicated message parsing, because you can cheer, you can hype, you can do all kinds of things to represent bits inside of a message. You can check the tags. And so what I did was I added this isBits event or isBits message function, which is currently not where you would expect it to be, but isBits message basically just tries to convert the bits tag, and we return whether or not that conversion succeeded. Not particularly efficient necessarily, but it's easy to read. If it's a bit message, then send the bit message. That's the other change that I made in terms of just general IRC code is we now have this send event method. And the reason that I wanted to do this is I wanted to abstract the IRC.outboundEvents concept. I wanted this to be kind of centralized so that if I decided to change it, that it would be relatively easy. And I almost did change it, so that's why that that's why that change came about. Lastly, as far as I can tell, other than fixing the bits bug, I also swapped over to using the bot.newBlankEvent constructors. So for a bits message, we send a bits message that's actually down in here. We parse this out, yada yada yada. So, but in doing that, it also got me thinking, and one of the things that I started to think about is that there's a lot of logic that's starting to occur around the message. And so I went ahead and decided to move that into its own file. So now message.go in the IRC package exists. And let's see here. Yes. And I also fixed a bug this morning where I don't have any initialization step here for tags. I don't have any initialization for the map. And so that required me to basically add in a check here. Now I could have created a proper constructor, new message, and then we associate the map that way, which honestly kind of sort of makes sense to me. So if we did new message. This is going to return a message and return message. And tags is make map. Please excuse, it is very cold here at the moment, and my throat is not pleased with the new dry environment. Okay. I'll probably still have this as kind of a safeguard, but we can swap over to that here a little bit later. And then what I started to do is I started to make methods on top of this this message struct to do a lot of this type of logic. So where we're actually inspecting tags directly. And there's a part of me that actually feels that perhaps this should be lowercase and this should be the exported method. Effectively, I would prefer that people use things like the raid is raid message, is chat message, is bits message, etc. Same concept as to what we do in the bot.event. This just allows me to centralize that logic in case it changes. And then I started to do more or less the same thing for Raider and for message, raid size is int. And what I'm effectively doing is replacing a lot of the logic here and just plopping them into blocks like this or methods like this. Yep. I'm not usually a fan of logging inside of struct methods, but it does give me basically direct at the source traceability, which I will almost always take. Parse raid message. So now, instead of having parse raid message like so, we can do this, and then we can say message.raider message.raid size, and then this will send VT. And then instead of using this, we can just do a blank switch, and we can say case message dot is raid message. It's a raid event. Grab the raider, the raid size, send that off. That's the only form of of message parsing that we're doing right now for user notice. But eventually we'll basically be copying this pattern for subs and resubs and gift subs and so forth. And that removes the need to have parse message type. This is probably complaining because of declaration. Yep, so we are not going to have that in here. We are going to yoink that, go to references, and then we're going to do pretty much the same thing here. Excuse me. Change in here. This is going to send the EBT. This is going to be message dot think I'll call it cheerer. Maybe. message.bits amount. And obviously those don't exist, so we will have to do so. We'll have to add those methods in. And then this is bits message. Okay. Come back down here. And that's a lot of code that's getting pulled out of IRC, which is great. That makes things a lot easier. Okay. Then message is bits event. And then do more or less the same thing. Some more methods. Now we could break these up. We could basically break these out into separate files. So we could have a IRC bits.go, IRC raid.go, and each of those things would just decorate the message. I don't necessarily want to do that just yet, because I kind of like the way that these methods are on the message struct file itself, and so it's very explicit being a little bit ahead of myself. It's very explicit that those methods, that those files are basically associated to this file. Now that's obviously a bit of a weak item for later on if this file starts to grow exponentially, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it, if we get to it. Bits amount. This is going to return an integer. And this is where we do this logic. Oh yeah, didn't we have... Oh no, we just did that. Okay, I would actually rather do more or less the same thing. I'm more of a fan of returning at the point of the error than I am of assigning a variable up here and then returning somewhere down here, especially if this middle bit starts to grow, if the code starts to grow. It can get very confusing about where a particular piece of data is changing. So I try to avoid that as much as possible. Okay. Check if it's a bits message. Grab the person that cheered. I kind of want to call this a bits sender. Bit sender and bits amount, raider and raid size, because bitter doesn't really make sense here. So we will do this, bits sender and bits amount. And there we go. Now, and we could more or less do the same thing for this, but explicit knowledge of priv message versus user notice, I think it's fine here, at least for right now. I know that seems contradictory to the statements that I just made. But that's the joy of it. That's the joy of watching me code. You get to see my contradictions. All right. And now, I do believe that these constants can now go in here. And then, is there any reason... user notice. And then raid size. Just making sure I'm more or less following the same pattern. Seems to be. Do a quick diagnostic check. Oh, we do have port there, which is fine. And now we don't have any of those constants inside of IRC. Those are message specific. And let's see here. Join, capability request, priv message, send pong, a move, oops, not up into the string method. That would be terrible. Send pass, send pong, send pass, send nick, read. Yeah, let's have this down here. We'll kind of co-locate the pluggable related items down here. Just for a little bit of code organization. So now we've got read, parse IRC line, which is what happens up in here. In here. And then we've got write. Now, one could argue, though, that this logic belongs inside of message. And I'm starting to convince myself that that is true. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm convincing myself that that is true. Which also means I was going to say that would also mean that add tag would become an unexported method, but at the same time that doesn't really buy us anything because it's IRC, the package is consuming this code. So I don't know that that necessarily buys me anything. Let me add a to-do for myself. Should this be in message.go? Feel like the answer is yes. My gut at least tells me that the answer is yes. Alrighty. And then down here, message equals new message. You can keep that convention. I think we're good there. We are currently hooked into Spooky Ghost Machine, a fantastic streamer. Let's see here. Had raids and bits turned on. And it looks like we are still, at least some semblance, working, which is a start. And what we could do Spooky will probably kill me for this. I'll have to get her her permission. Let me bring this down here. Twitch.tv Spooky Ghost Machine. sure that's muted. Very good. Yeah, so we got Spooky pulled up on the side here, and I do have to expand this a little bit. So let's just do a quick cheer. And what we should see down here is a bits message and a recognition of that bits message. Find out. Yep, there she be. Perfect. All right, perfect. So just grabbing here what we were looking for. Boop. Edgelabs cheered 100 bits, and it made it to the bot. Type of 1, which is a bits message, recipient, title, and amount is even coming through. Fantastic. So we are now connected to the bot. We've got, and what I did do previously, we have this message now. Blah, 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 cheered amount of bits. And raids were actually working earlier as well. So super exciting that is actually working the way that I wanted to. So this is going to be extract raid bits message parsing to message.go. Oh, I have no upstream branch. That's because I never actually set that up. Bada-boop. And let's see here. So over here, I have this raids bits piece, which I think I am going to have to do back to WSIO read write closer. Please excuse me. Boy, my voice is not happy with me this morning. And let's see here. So we've got some documentation which I'm going to use later for testing purposes. And the more or less what I would like to do is I would like to take a line similar to this, and actually I will have to turn on some more raw tracing to get this proper. But we were doing some testing, grabbing bits, whispers, timeouts, gift subs, raids, all that fun. We got a lot of data. So I'm super excited to turn those into tests. We have our bits handler, which for the moment, we're not actually doing the bits thanking. We're just logging that we've recognized the message. Let's see here. We added raid with a new raid event and is raid event for the bot.event. We've got our raid handler, which basically does the same thing as bits. Eventually, we would like to automatically shout out the raider. At least that'll be configured in the message, in the config YAML. And right now, we do have the bit as shout out at blah. I would like to implement this functionality, personally. I would like to add a kind of custom shout out function. And I think I have... So I should absolutely... add that in and plop on the off stream. Let's see here. And we don't quite have bits tracking yet. But let's see here. On stream poll, simple on stream chat box. We don't, it looks like. Okay. So custom shout out command. Or should call it functionality. And we will probably put that as an MVP 3 because that's going to get into the HTTP API, if I remember correctly, and that'll take a little bit of work. So we're not quite there yet. All right. So we removed a bunch of documentation from before, cleaned up scheme and host because that's no longer needed in config. Message is now in its own file. I also did simplify message.params. I can't remember if I did that on the last video or not. But params is now just a flat string, so we don't have to constantly reconstruct it into a slice of strings. You ever just break out into song randomly? For some reason, I do on pull requests all the time. We've got our parse IRC line. If message command is ping, our conversion to a bot.event, which is now very compact in comparison to what it was in the last video, where we were basically just plopping every bit of logic into this method. It's a little more compact, I feel. Conversion to constructor. This is the population of tags that we're now doing as a map. Remove that logic, plop that back up top. Don't have to do strings.join everywhere again, which is fantastic. And then we've got our message.go. Oh, right. And I do still have pub sub disabled. So we did add a RAID and bits flag to the CLI. Pub sub is disabled, and we changed the last piece where we were still using the old form in config of feature.channel name. Now everything starts at the root of a channel name and then goes down from there, which is more or less just this format. So we've got the channel, and then all data and features associated to the channel are nested below that. I think this is ready. Let's see here. So raids and bits. Raids and bits and raids and bits and raids and bits and I know. So we want to do a quick change list because, again, change lists are a nice way of TLDRing what happened. So first we want to say split message into own file, add raid message recognition and parsing, add bits message recognition and parsing. Should say explicitly this is to IRC. This is not Vim. Darn it. GitHub, when you gonna give me Vim? Give me Vim, please. Let's see here. What else do we have? We have add raid handler stub to the bot. Add bits handler stub to the bot. And excuse me. I feel like I want to. Again, this is not Vim. I need to stop treating it like Vim. Copy. I want to kind of co-locate these bullet points. Add raid flag to CLI. And now we can say add bits message, add bits handler, and add bits flag to CLI. And there we go. Alrighty. So we're going to leave this here. I am going to post this into the Discord channel so that everybody can come in and take a look. And then eventually, so we are kind of in a chain of, we're in a chain of pull requests right now because of the change of WebSocket behind io.readWriteCloser. Actually, this has been open for a couple of days now, I think. Yeah, 2 days ago. I think we'll go ahead and merge this. So, we'll change this. This is no longer a draft. WebSocket behind io.readWrite closer and up message size 21024. Technically, I don't need all of those methods or all those messages because I think actually we can remove them with a max message size of 1024. Just so that we at least have an inkling that perhaps the message size will come in contention later. So at least if we're searching through commit history, we'll see that. We'll confirm squash and merge, which does mean that raids and bits will need to be updated. So this will now go to main base. That'll probably break the mergeability. Yep. So let's resolve those conflicts. I'll resolve them in here because it's going to be relatively easy to do. And we want to defer to the version on raid bits. I like how GitHub now kind of does this little like squaring. It kind of boxes in the changes so that you can see explicitly. It took a very long time for me to train myself to go, okay, open, close. I don't know why. But that boxing definitely helps quite a bit. The view. So to do, remove when tested. Oh, it's tested. Kind of. It's manually tested. Do like that. Okay. I believe that one is marked resolved. So we can, oh yes, now we have to clean main up, which doesn't look like it's too bad. Thankfully, no. Mark is resolved. Commit merge. And now after I do that, I like to come back into the CLI and do a git pull. Git pull origin, if I can type raids bits, pull that down, do a quick go test, make sure everything more or less compiles, and then also go run main.go. Everything's looking good. All right. It's kind of a gut check. I would much prefer to be able to run a test suite, and that is something that we are going to address here soon. But that'll again be another video. All right. I think I'll leave this up for a little while just so everybody in the Discord can see it. But all right, well, we're gonna stop here. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed it. And next time, we are going to hit on some testing because I need tests. And I will not stop saying that until I get the tests in. So thank you all so much. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, everybody.